One of the biggest controversies in the Disney Star Wars era is the decanonization of Legends. This is all the non theatrical media, a lot of the shows, video games, comic books, and over 120 novels. And rightfully so, people were pretty pissed about it. But I gotta be honest, I don't think this was entirely a bad idea. Now, hold on, before you come for me in the comments, hear me out. I'm not defending Disney's actions entirely. And while I am a fan of the EU, I have my issues with it. In this video, I just want to share all sides of the argument and why, at the end of the day, I think that this was actually the right move. I'm Andrew Valenza, author of the book Empire of the Void and the Empire Marathon. I'm also just a major fan of Star Wars. Like, I do genuinely love it. I don't think Disney ruined Star Wars. I think they've done some good stuff with it. I think they've done some bad stuff with it. And I think the Legends has some good and bad stuff, which we'll get into. Now, I started reading Star Wars books back in 2020. The first one was either Dark Disciple or the first Thrawn book in the new Disney timeline, just titled Thrawn. And then after that, I read Splinter of the Mind's Eye, the first official Star Wars novel that came out in 1978. I absolutely loved Dark Disciple. It's an adaptation of unproduced Clone Wars episodes about Quinlan Vos becoming an apprentice to Asajj Ventress to hunt down Count Dooku, and there's a little bit of a romance involved. I did not expect this much spice from something that came from a kid's show. Needless to say, it's a 5-star read. Like, 5 out of 5. Highly recommend it. Read the book. Read the gosh darn book. Splinter, I love less. And now, to be fair, Splinter of the Mind's Eye is a product of its time. There was no real plan for Star Wars yet. There wasn't a lot of foresight. They're still trying to figure out if the movie's going to do well or not. Should we do sequels? How expensive should the sequels be? What should we be ready for if it fails? The franchise was still getting its footing, but because of that, the creative choices just do not age well. This, we'll see, becomes a major hindrance to the EU. So this year in particular, I've been reading a ton more Star Wars. I mean, this is on my desk because I'm currently reading it. Some of my favorite books this year have been Shadows of the Empire, Legends, Shadow of the Sith, Canon, Dark Lord, The Rise of Lord Vader, Legends, and as I said right now, I'm very much enjoying the Thrawn Ascendancy books. And while there is a lot to love in both timelines, I found more duds in Legends. The Han Solo adventures, pretty much anything by Joe Scribner? What do my notes say? Joe Schreiber? He did Red Harvest and Death Troopers. No. But also, I really dislike the Dark Empire trilogy. All of these I dislike for different reasons, but often what happens is there are parts of these stories that just don't hold up anymore. For example, did you know that in the Dark Empire trilogy, Boba Fett's origin is that he's an ex-stormtrooper? Not a bad thing, but just that's not it anymore. Even within the EU. Even the best works, such as the Heir to the Empire trilogy, don't stand the test of time with how much retconning there is after the fact. So when Disney came in and wanted to clean slate to have a coherent story, you can't really blame them. But while the EU's fatal flaw is lack of planning or poor planning, Disney's was that as well as poor execution. The first thing Disney should have done when resetting canon was actually vetting what still fit. I understand they wanted total freedom, but the Old Republic stuff could have stayed in without messing up any of their plans for the franchise, especially when they were so focused on the sequel trilogy timeline. Like, I get they wanted to do this Rey story, so the Thrawn stuff, the Heir to the Empire stuff, doesn't really work. But Revan, Darth Malgus, all that stuff, totally fine, doesn't intrude on anything. Some of the Clone Wars books too, especially ones published later in the game, those probably could have been kept in. Razor's Edge, a prelude of sorts to Empire Strikes Back, could 100% still be called canon on this new timeline, and doesn't interfere with anything. It is a solid standalone adventure. And we have seen that Disney is trying to integrate aspects of the EU into their new canon. They're salvaging whatever fits, but unfortunately they just don't understand the material they're picking from. Now, I don't think this is controversial to say, but Rise of Skywalker is pretty universally accepted as the worst Star Wars movie. The entire runtime is just bad fan service trying to make up for the reception to The Last Jedi. But they're doing this by only recycling what the numbers said would work. Here's what I mean. Rise of Skywalker is a very poor adaptation of an already bad EU story, The Dark Empire, with some aspects of the Heir to the Empire trilogy thrown in for good measure, like the Dark Force Rising. In Dark Empire, the New Republic is still fighting the remnants of the Empire, but then out of nowhere,
somehow Palpatine returned.
And yep, it's cloning, and he's attempting to transfer his soul into a younger, Force-sensitive body because his body that he keeps like cloning himself into time and time again is just so broken and withered and constantly decaying. It's Rise of Skywalker. It's the same plot as Rise of Skywalker. They just did Dark Empire. Now, George Lucas famously hated this storyline, thinking it was a terrible idea bringing Papa Palps back. Because it's ridiculous. That should have never been done. It even got retconned within the EU. And even the fan reception turned against it with time. So why would Disney use that as the blueprint? Well, until Dark Empire came out, comic sales were pretty abysmal. Marvel was selling for maybe 5,000 copies a month. But with Dark Empire, it sold over 200,000 copies. So yeah, it totally revitalized the comic line. So on paper, it seems like a great starting point to get fans back into theaters after losing them with Solo and The Last Jedi. Solo, I actually really love, by the way. I think it's a great time. It's slept on. People overhate it without actually giving it a chance. But it's all about the execution. Disney is only looking at the surface level and not bothering to understand what does or doesn't work about the source material they're pulling from. They see that the comic sold well, so it must be good. Fast and the Furious also pulls in a lot of money, but are those movies good? No, not at all. In the Acolyte show, they teased Darth Plagueis in the finale. Why? Why would you do that? Why'd you do that, Disney? Is it cool they're acknowledging him? Sure, 100%. I love that we actually got to see him on screen. But the book written by James Luceno, it still fits really well into the Disney timeline. So why go out of your way to mess that up? Instead, you could have the Acolyte tell the story you want to tell and do a faithful adaptation to the book that most fans consider one of the best in the entire Star Wars EU. Disney, it's possible to have your cake and eat it too in this scenario. The biggest problem isn't that Disney's resetting canon, it's that they took an axe to it while they could have just been giving it a trim. Within the EU already, there's stuff that the EU doesn't consider EU canon, like Splinters of the Mind's Eye, and like I said, they retconned the Dark Empire trilogy. Timothy Zahn in his follow-up books was like, yeah, I don't think that happened. I don't think Palpatine came back. I think that's just a story people tell themselves. The reset was necessary, but the work wasn't put in to recompile it into something that propped up the new Disney timeline. Nor did it do justice to the fans. It was actually kind of disrespectful how they did it. And I'm sorry to say this, but Heir to the Empire deserves to be in Legends. But it should also have been adapted and tweaked and rewritten, reworked to fit into the new Disney timeline. 100%! Yeah! That was just... Disney, you dropped the ball on that one. That was free money right there. And Dark Empire deserves to be in the garbage. I'm going to say that. I'm saying it right now. I'm going to do a full review soon, but oh my lord. This comic is horrible. It's just... I'm going to save my thoughts for the review. I'll do that. I think that if you are a fan who is either like all Legends because Disney sucks, or you are a new canon only because why would I waste my time with something that's not canon, you're both in the wrong camps. You can enjoy both of them. But also both views are kind of valid in a way that's like Disney dropped the ball. They should have integrated both of them a little bit better. But again, the reset was needed. Anyway, if you don't want to read any of those books, or if you really love them and want to try something new in sci-fi, check out Empire of the Void. It's phenomenal. Especially if you like Shadows of the Empire, something tells me you're gonna love Empire of the Void. So you're gonna really like it. You're gonna like it. You're gonna like the book.